All right, so my name is Allene Smith, and I'm with Legacy Land Conservancy. And I'm here to talk about, as we have discussed at length, context is everything. And so I'm going to provide a little bit of context about Legacy, to some degree our vision for moving forward with the property, and really just want to underscore and can't say enough how grateful we are to be able to step into this story of this property. And it really is thanks to Sybil and to all those who have carried it forward, that it's here today, and that I'm here today, and that Legacy gets this opportunity. So I am a senior land protection specialist with Legacy Land Conservancy. I normally work on conservation easement acquisitions, but also I've been with the organization for, it'll be 10 years this year, and spent 6 of those years managing the organization's public nature preserves. So while I haven't worked very closely on this project, it's definitely close to my heart personally, and I live in the area, and so one reason I'm here to chat with you today. So you can advance to the next slide. So like I said, context is everything. So before I chat about Iron Creek, I'm going to talk a little bit about Legacy, so you can kind of know who we are and why we're taking the role that we are. So Legacy was founded as Washtenaw Land Conservancy in 1971. And in our 50-plus year history, the organization has gone by the Washtenaw Potawatomi Land Trust and also the Washtenaw Land Trust. And I mention that because in my time with the organization, I've definitely run into people who they didn't know they knew us. So we took on the name Legacy Land Conservancy in 2009 when we incorporated Jackson County into our service area. And then actually in 2023, just last year, we formally took on Lenawee County as part of our service area as well through our work with the Raisin Valley Land Trust. And so we protect land in 3 main ways, and that is through conservation easements or conservation agreements with private landowners, through partnerships with other organizations, and through ownership. So we own 7 public nature preserves, soon to be 8. And manage those for public access, and also manage the ecosystems present in the natural communities there. And we're also, it's worth saying that Legacy is also a really vibrant community. So we're a medium-sized group of really passionate and skilled staff.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. But also our board of trustees, the committees of our board, everyone's really engaged and really does support and believe in the mission. That's really a privilege to witness. But also our donors, our volunteers, our partner organizations like Raisin Valley Land Trust and others. And really there's a real sense of community with the organization, and it grows with time. So it's also worth noting that we are an accredited land trust. And so we're accredited by the Land Trust Accreditation Commission, which is a national organization that provides sort of a backdrop and some checks and balances to really ensure that Legacy and our processes are meeting, or in many cases exceeding, industry standards. So when we make that promise of forever, we're doing everything in our power to ensure that we can keep that promise. I've heard it said that that the accreditation process puts the trust in land trust. So it is, and I've been through the re-accreditation process 2 times, about to be 3, working with Legacy, and it's a really meaningful process. It's more than just a rubber stamp. We really have to dig through our processes and update policies and make sure that we're not just playing by the rules, but yeah, really, we can really cut the mustard. So, and also additionally, we also work with other, we're sought out by other local conservation groups like the Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation and the Ann Arbor Greenbelt for technical expertise. So we work on contract with them as well. So we've got our hands on a lot of things, but that's how we like it. And I know in the Manchester area this has been discussed lately. So this is the evidence, sort of the meaning of local land protection millages. The increase you see here, over 18,000 acres. Oh, we don't have years. I think it's 2005, 10. Oh, I didn't make the slideshow. nonetheless, I think it's a 20-year gap, and in a 20-year time span, in Washtenaw County, conservation orgs were able to add over 18,000 acres, and a big part of that is because of the county level millage and several township millages and the city millage as well. So it's a huge part of the increased pace of land conservation in our area. There's a lot of interest. So legacy, as I said, we work in Jackson, Lenawee, and Lenawee, and Washtenaw counties right now. Only 3 of the watersheds are highlighted, but those are the primary watersheds that we would do work in: the Huron, the Upper Grand, and the Raisin. But our service area also includes the Ottawa Stony watershed, the Rouge, Kalamazoo, and I forget what's on the west side of Lenawee County. If anyone knows, shout it out.
Bean Creek, I think.
What was it?
Bean Creek or the Tippin River.
Okay. At any rate, so all the green dots are legacy held easements. Well, rather they're, some of them represent more than one conservation easement. And then the little nest icons are our 7 public nature preserves. So we hold 102 easements, totaling over 5,000 or nearly 5,000 acres, preserves just over 300. And in the organization's history, under its various names and through partnerships, we've been part of the protection of over 10,000 acres within our service area. In many cases, so it really rose out of the Ann Arbor area. It was truly a community land trust with folks just banding together and saying, hey, you know what? This land shouldn't be developed. For instance, I think it was the Washtenaw Land Conservancy, right at the beginning of its life, was part of the conservation of the Bird Hills Nature Area in Ann Arbor, if you know that area, and then also I think Black Pond Woods. So some areas that we then protected and then transferred ownership to other entities. You can go on ahead. So, as I said, a big part of Legacy's work is the stewardship of natural areas that we own, and part of that is not just the careful attention to the natural communities present, but also ensuring that public access can be comfortable and really allowing folks that place to connect with the natural world. So we do that through habitat restoration, through trail maintenance and improvements, and then also through signage. A big part of being in nature is feeling safe, and so some people need a little extra context and that sort of human touch to feel like they can really explore a natural area. And so a lot of that's through sort of this passive communication with signage. So we really do prioritize access and the ecological systems present on the property. They're very much tandem priorities. So part of the process with the Iron Creek Preserve and with all of our public nature preserves is a land management plan. So we're very thoughtful about sort of reading the landscape and asking what does this landscape want to be, and how can we help it really thrive? And how can we allow public access in a way that doesn't threaten the natural values that we see here? So that we usually aim to have, and it's an accreditation standard, to have that really full, fleshed out management plan done within a year of accepting title to a property. But really we're doing it all the time. And even at the time of the legal acquisition, we'll have a pretty good sketch of what the plans are already in place. So we use a lot of prescribed fire. We'll of course work on invasive species removal and signage and homage to the history of the property, the human history of the property as well. So as you can imagine, and some of you might have even done some of this work, volunteers are really essential to this part of Legacy's work. Many hands. And it's a really constant effort, land management is. So we work with a lot of really dedicated, passionate volunteers on this kind of work. Okay, so let's talk about Iron Creek. So I have actually only visited the property once myself. So Susan LaCroix, who's our land protection director, and Kyler Moran, who's our preserve manager, they have been the most involved with the property and with this project. I just live down the street, so I get to talk with you all tonight. But yeah, I visited, I think, just about 4 years ago, and what we're seeing here and what we see as like the natural attributes of the property, the prairie fen, remnant prairie fen, is a big part of that. So that's the wet area, the wetland, just, what do you say, north and east? Or just straight east of the farmstead?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit on the north side of that trail.
Sure, yes. So a prairie fen is locally very important. So I believe the Michigan Natural Features Inventory qualifies them as critically imperiled in our area, because open wetlands are the easiest to turn into farmland. So one of the things that makes prairie fens so special is that they're characterized by groundwater seeping up through what we call calcareous soils. So that's limestone, anything that's high in calcium, and that creates a unique pH that we don't see everywhere. And so, you know, if we think about what creates a plant community is the hydrology, which is very enmeshed with the soil profile present on a site. So we're coming from the ground up. And so because of the unique pH conditions, the habitat can support species that really can't live anywhere else. Worth mentioning too that I always find this to be really exciting, that prairie fens form the headwaters of a lot of our major rivers because it's a seep. Yeah, so the fact that this is present on the property is no small part of what we will be seeking to support. So then another really neat aspect to this particular property, as Silas and Sybil both mentioned, is basically the topography and the varied ecosystems. So between the soil profiles that we see and the topography, that results in microhabitats. So as Silas mentioned, you know, the south side of a hill is different from the north side of a hill and things like that. You get, you know, low areas that might hold a little bit of water or things. So all that variation has really, even in research, been linked to climate change resiliency. So when you have a lot of diversity of conditions on a property, then it can support a diversity of life forms, and that's what we want. So the woodlands, of course, it was neat to see the film footage with the big open, you know, hillsides. You can really tell that there is a lot of topography on the property, and those are predominantly wooded now with actually some fairly high quality oak hickory woodlands. And so whenever we see woodlands, we think of carbon sequestration and carbon storage. And so again, another really big, there's a handout in the back that kind of goes through some of this and actually quantifies or attempts to quantify some of the carbon storage on the property and sort of value it to some degree. And then the wetlands in the Iron Creek floodplain, albeit they've been disturbed in the past, but certainly things we can do to help them maintain function and increase their function as, you know, water infiltration and filtration can be performed there. So I think you've seen forms of this map before. This shows the existing trail system. I do know, I chatted with Kyler Moran, our preserve manager, before coming out, just to get a sense for what he envisions for the property, and he said lots of fire because these oak-dominated ecosystems and the prairie fen both, as Silas mentioned, did evolve and come about with the presence of humans intentionally lighting fires. So we want to maintain that or reintroduce a fire regime to the property, regimen. So yeah, fire is going to be used in the prairie fen as well. We'll definitely do some manual removal of especially woody invasive species and hand pulling of the herbaceous or biennial invasive species. Kyler made note that there are black locust trees on the property, which wonderful in some regards. I hear they make great fence posts, very hardy. And maybe we'll probably use some of them, but they are also clonal, which means when you cut one, they create a lot more and they spread really readily. So he's aware of that being, you know, maybe a little more intensive requirement for land management there. But it's also true that we don't necessarily want to make too much change too quickly. So working in a gentle pace to allow the systems to respond to what we're doing. So he also chatted about adding some native shrubs to the wetlands along Iron Creek to, again, just start to maybe increase function, increase floral diversity where we can. And then maybe some minor trail relocations, expansion of the trail system, relocating where maybe the grade is too steep up a hill so we don't get washout, or perhaps heading the trail toward or away from things that we want to bring people to, or give some more space to. And so the part that everybody's really interested in, including myself, is sort of what kind of timeline we're aiming for. So like I said, aiming for the complete written management plan by December of this year. A big part of the work that's in front of Legacy is the fundraising component. So we have, it's essentially a commitment to perpetuity that we need to fundraise the entire stewardship endowment, which we calculate. We have a system for calculating what we anticipate the property, the sort of annual maintenance of the property to require, in addition to some sort of capital improvements. For instance, the bridge, while it's very solid, Susan mentioned that, but we want to make sure it's safe, perhaps put up a railing, that kind of a thing, safe for public use. So we have some more fundraising to do. And if this is something you're passionate about, there are some materials in the back. And we're gonna really, it's something the whole team is actively working on. But we are hoping for a grand opening in spring of 2025, trying to be sort of realistic, knowing how this kind of thing might work. But in the meantime, again, get in touch, because we're going to be actively working on the property in the meantime. So that is gonna look like, we are gonna start to manage the land itself. Also some cleanup on the property. They're marking boundaries right now, not currently, but at this time. So we do plan to host volunteer events. If you want to get a sneak peek, we can barter a little bit. You get a peek. You maybe share with us some of your time and energy. So we'll get information out. So if we have your email, we'll let you know. We can advance. All right, so as regard to Iron Creek and beyond that, we do host public events. Like I said, Legacy is a community, and we're really trying to reach more people and engage with more people so that we love the returning faces. We love our friends and the folks who have been with the organization for a long time. But we want to see a lot of new faces too and really get the word out. I think there are slides with some events that are coming up, both community events and then Legacy sponsored events or Legacy initiated events. There's also a flyer in the back if you're interested in getting involved. Or if you're really excited about volunteering, like I said, I can't say enough that we could never do this work alone. It would be literally impossible. So we have folks who both help us monitor our conservation easement properties. So if you want to go tromp around on somebody else's beautiful property or farmland, which is also beautiful in its way, let me know. And we have a really strong team for that. Folks who take pictures at events, or just like if you take pictures of the natural world, flowers, birds, etc. We would love to use those for our publications. We obviously have volunteers in governance and folks who help us with administrative tasks, all of the above. I think all of these are on the handout in the back, so we don't have to linger too long on this, but just some community events coming up that where we're gonna be tabling or hanging out. And then a couple of Legacy events as well. Some of them are, I think one of them is this weekend. So those are all on the flyer in the back as well if you want to learn more, come hang out with us. Some volunteer opportunities. The Sharon Hills Preserve, some of you might have heard of, it's pretty close by. And there's also a map of all of our public preserves in the back. If you want to, it's very similar it's similar in character to Iron Creek. the Iron Creek Preserve. And so if you kind of want to get a sense for what Iron Creek might look like in the future, or really it does now, but how Legacy approaches management of our public preserves, that's a good place to check out. Okay, so, yep, ways to get involved. We've pretty much covered this. As working on the conservation easement acquisitions team, I do have to say, if you want to chat with me about that, it's literally my favorite thing to talk about, other than maybe my kids, but it's a tie. So, and of course, you know, it's not always comfortable to ask people for money. You work hard for your money and have worked hard for your money, but if you're willing to share whatever you can with Legacy, we will put it to good use. It's a big part of. I used to never ask, and now, you know what, I believe in the mission enough. I'm sold. Cool, so that's my contact information at the top, and then I also included Kyler's as well if you have specific questions about the preserve or just kind of want more information to get plugged into that process. And I have Susan LaCroix's contact information in the back as well, her card's here. She's been heading up the acquisition process and the house deconstruction, or not heading it up, but facilitating for Legacy. And that, I believe she was integral in securing funding through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to support the house deconstruction and some other of our initial work on the property. And that is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we can take questions if anyone wants questions, or we can mingle around, or you can go home. But we tried to go a little faster, but you know, we really get involved in this thing. I know, we bring a lot in, but thank you all so much for coming. We want to keep